Well, here we go with the study of the book of Revelation. I'd like to be really useful in this thing, do you understand? I'd like you to believe when we're through with the study, well, I don't understand everything about it, but I was comforted. I was enlightened. I do feel that finally, with prayer to God and some diligence on my part, I can really get a hold of the book of Revelation and the message that is intended for me. I think Revelation has been neglected for years and years, and that we're now reaping the whirlwind of it. We're going to have to take a couple of our lessons that say something introductory about the book. Now that's always distressing to me, especially if you happen to be just, a beginning student of the Word of the Lord. For I well recall my eagerness to get into the text. Let me read the Bible, you see. But I'm not lying to you, telling you the sober truth. Sometimes having some things cleared up before you enter a book will enable you to study the book and really get the benefit of it, okay? So, what you need to do is be patient with me. Listen well. Weigh it all up the best of your ability. But do give it a good listening to early on. And then when we finally get into the book, I honestly believe that you will find these couple of lessons that we've spent before we enter the text a genuine profit to you. I wish to say something about the time frame of the book of Revelation. Every man and his mother is coming along and telling us about events that are going to happen, and the book of Revelation is quoted day in and day out. You women have been to the hairdressers, and the lady next to you has been babbling away to you about the seven-headed beast with the 10 horns out of Revelation chapters 13 and 17. I know you've seen prophecies lately about this hot weather we've been having. The signs of the times are on us. And I suppose you, like the rest of us, have thought, what on earth are they saying? Or what's even more important, is what they're saying true? And when they quoted the book of Revelation, it distressed you because you felt, good night, I've troubles enough understanding the book of John and the book of Acts. But when they get into the Revelation epistle, I have nowhere to go. And so we sit and listen to these people feeding us this material. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to follow me for this lesson, and I want you to believe that you have as much ability to determine the right or wrong of what I'm about to say as anybody you ever meet. Don't surrender your brains to anybody. Now let me ask you this. What does it mean when someone says, these things I'm telling you must shortly come to pass? Don't have to have a doctor's degree to understand that, do you? John said, are you listening? John said in chapter 1, verse 1, The revelation of Jesus Christ which God gave him. Why did he give it to Jesus? To show unto his servants even the things which must shortly come to pass. What does shortly come to pass mean? You say, well, I don't know. Well, sweetheart, if you don't know, this study in Revelation isn't going to help you at all. But of course you know. Shortly come to pass means what shortly come to pass means. Now he says in verse 3 of chapter 1, blessed is he or she that readeth, and they that hear the words of the prophecy, and keep the things written in there, because the time is at hand. Now, if he didn't write this letter to 7 churches in Asia Minor in the 1st century, I may wonder about really what is the time frame of the book. But since he specifically tells us in chapter 1 and verse 11 and following, what you see, write in a book and send it to 7 Asia Minor churches. Now do it, said he. Well, what am I going to write, says John. Write about things, said Jesus, to these 7 Asia Minor churches. Write about things which must shortly come to pass. Tell them to pay attention, for the time's at hand. I don't care what you'll do with the symbols. I don't care what you'll think about the 3 frogs that come out of the mouth of the dragon and the 2 beasts. I don't know what you'll say about those locusts with those breastplates of iron, hair like women and teeth like lions. I don't know what you'll say about this dragon who's tearing down 1/3 of the stars of the heavens. But if you don't understand the 2 plain statements before the book apocalyptically begins, if you don't understand those 2 statements, and if you will not be honest enough to face them, well then there's no guarantee at all that you'll understand anything in the book. That's what he says at the start of the book. Let me tell you what he says at the finish of the book, just so as you and I will be sure. Chapter 22, verse 6. He said at the beginning of the book, I'm writing about things which must shortly come to pass. So pay attention, for the time is at hand. Now he says in 22:6, at the end of the book, these words are faithful and true, and the Lord, the God of the spirits of the prophets, sent his angel to show unto his servants the things which must shortly come to pass. Now, he already said it once at the beginning of the book. Now he says it again at the end of the book. You think he might want us to understand that the book was dealing with materials that were to shortly come to pass? I'd say so. What if he had wanted to tell these people in the 1st century? Listen to me. What if he'd wanted to tell those people in the 1st century, the things I'm talking about are things which must shortly come to pass? How might he have said it? He might have said, I'm talking about things which must shortly come to pass. Mightn't he? Sure. Chapter 22, verse 10. He said unto me, don't seal up the words of the prophecy of this book. Don't publish it abroad. Why? Because the time is at hand. John, who died way back in the 2nd century, John was told, don't you seal the words of this prophecy up. No. Make it known. And the reason for it is the time's at hand. If John came tottering into the room or the building that you're now in, and he walked up to the lectern, and said, I've got a revelation here for you. It deals with things which must shortly come to pass. What would you think? And then he says, pay attention now, for the time's at hand. You'll be all ears. Then he reads from that scroll to us, rolls it up, leaves it on the lectern, heads for the door. He'd have to be an old man by now, wouldn't he? Heads for the door, looks back and says, now what I told you was true. And I told you about things which must shortly come to pass. He heads out the door, pops his head back in and yells at you. Now don't you seal that prophecy up, because the time's at hand. Would it ever enter your mind that he was talking about the 40th century? Would it ever enter your mind that he was talking about anything other than something that was about to begin in the immediate future? Well, since John back in the 1st century got a revelation and shared it with people in the 1st century and said, pay attention, the time's at hand, and dealing with things which must shortly come to pass, wouldn't you think that we would be being sensible when we understand the book of Revelation to relate to those days back then? Mark these scriptures down, please. Daniel 8, verse 1. Daniel 8, 13 and 14. Daniel 8, verse 26. Mark down Ezekiel chapter 12. Ezekiel chapter 12 and verses 21 through 28. Ezekiel 12, 21 through 28. When you get a moment, read them for yourself. Ezekiel was told, the people are saying, the days are prolonged. Every vision's failing. Come on, we've heard that forever. The people said in verse 27, the vision he sees is for many days to come. He said, you tell those people, the vision is not for many days to come. The fulfillment will not be deferred, but the days are at hand. What did Ezekiel want them to understand? He wanted them to understand that the fulfillment of the vision was about to begin very shortly. How does he say it? He says, tell them, the days are at hand. Look up a lexicon, any lexicon, and you'll discover that they all agree, the lexicographers all agree, at hand means what it says. Now I want you to know that I'm not mad at anybody. Do you understand that? I want to illustrate to you that people know exactly what at hand and shortly come to pass means everywhere else but in the book of Revelation. If somebody says to you, I'll be there shortly, you know what they mean. If someone says, the time's very near, you know what they mean. How many books have you read lately or heard of lately, seen advertised on the television lately, which say, the end of the world's at hand, Armageddon is very near, the Antichrist's appearance is excitingly near, the end time things are about to come to pass? What did you think they meant? In their books, in their sermons, in their bumper stickers, folks all over the country are telling us the end of the world is at hand, and all of the Old Testament prophecy, the fulfillment of it all, is shortly to come to pass. Now, if you told them, why don't you make yourself clear? Don't say shortly come to pass. That might mean anything. They would tell you very quickly. Have a bit of sense. Shortly come to pass means it's just around the corner. You say, oh, does it? Sure, they would say. At hand means near. And you'd say, does it? And they would say, well, sure, everybody knows that. And then you say, what does it mean in Revelation 1:1 and 1:3, 22:6 and 22:10? Oh, well, nobody knows then. When I present my view of Revelation, if you think, well, he hasn't stuck to those phrases, then reject what I'm telling you. Whatever my view is of the symbols, they must be brought into line with John's explicit statements. If my interpretation doesn't fit with John's explicit remarks, I am the one that must change, not John. Here's the last thing I want to say to you about the time frame of Revelation. A woman was speaking to me one day. She was telling me about the seven-headed beast and the 10 horns, about the locust and the waters turning to blood and the like from Revelation chapters 9 and so forth. I said, lady, it's very interesting. What do you think of 1:1? What did John mean when he said 1900 years ago, I'm writing about things which must shortly come to pass? She didn't know. She said, well, you don't believe all that was fulfilled, do you? I said, well, that's really not the question. The question is, did John say that he was writing about things which must shortly come to pass? I said, what does at hand mean in verse 3? She didn't know. We went to 22:6 and 22:10. She never did tell me what it meant. She gave me a magazine, walked off up the street. I stood reading the thing. I got to the back page. And there on the back page, in big, black, bold, catching your eye print, it said, the end of the world is at hand. She knew exactly what it meant in her magazine, but didn't know what it meant in the Bible. Would you tell me why? I don't mean to be rude. The lady had already made up her mind about an interpretation of the symbols. And her interpretation of the symbols didn't go along with John's straightforward statements. So, too bad for John. I want to say something now about the thrust of Revelation. Revelation was written to Christians who were about to undergo a terrible persecution from Rome. Domitian will be the representative of that Roman Empire. And in him, Rome will come to life again as a persecuting power. And the book of Revelation says over and over and over again, you people are going to go through the ringer, but I'm with you. You folks are going to get the hammer, but I'm with you. You saints are going to be stomped on and beaten and battered and raped and abused and murdered. But I want you to know that I'm with you, and you win whether you live or die. The book is dedicated to telling the Christians you cannot lose in Christ. The world cannot whip you in Christ. No matter what you see develop, no matter who comes raging and rampaging into your life, you trust me, okay? For the Church of Jesus Christ will dance on the tomb of Rome when the dust is cleared. You'll be the winner. It's a book of comfort. It's a book telling Christian boys and Christian girls, you'll endure pain. But so did I. I have overcome the world. And in me, you can do that. It's not a book of fear. You mustn't be afraid of Revelation. I've had so many people tell me, that book scares me. I understand why. People have gotten that book and scared the fire out of people with it. John says in verse 3, blessed is the one who reads the thing and keeps the things that are written therein. It's a book of comfort for the church of God. And you watch and see how often he deviates from his line of thought, breaks into a thought, just to comfort the brethren. Here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to do what a big ball player did. He started reading Revelation, and the more he read, the more confused he got to be. He got to the end, threw down the book and jumped up and said, we win. We win. That's what the book tells you. We win. Come back and study with us, will you? And the Lord richly bless you.